She packed the Navy suitcase on a Tuesday morning, and I knew immediately she was lying. Not because of what she said. Victoria had always been a smooth talker, executive-level polished, but because of what she didn't say. No complaints about the conference hotel. No griping about the early flight. No forwarded itinerary cluttering my inbox like every other business trip for the past 8 years. "It's just a week," she said, folding a silk blouse with hotel commercial precision. "Regional planning session, Phoenix office." I watched from the bedroom doorway, coffee mug warm against my palm. Phoenix in June. Sounds brutal. "The resort has excellent air conditioning." She smiled without looking up. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and something flickered across her face, anticipation disguised as annoyance. "Need a ride to the airport?" "Already arranged a car service. You know how parking is." Another blouse. Another perfectly creased fold. I did know. I knew the Super Saver lot charged $12 a day. I knew she'd expensed it every previous trip. I knew her company's travel policy by heart because I'd helped her file reimbursements for 3 years before she made senior director. "What time's your flight?" 6:45. I should leave by 4:30 to be safe. American Airlines flight 2847 to Phoenix departed at 9:15. I'd checked while brewing coffee. Call it instinct. Call it pattern recognition. Call it whatever you want when your wife's tells become visible as cracks in fresh paint. "I'll probably be asleep," I said. "Good luck with the planning session." "Thanks, honey." She crossed to me, planted a kiss on my cheek. Her perfume was different. Not the Chanel I'd bought her for Christmas. Something younger, brighter. "I'll text when I land." She didn't specify which landing. Phoenix was a 3-hour flight. Wherever she was actually going probably wasn't. I returned to the kitchen and opened my laptop. My job at Davidson Logistics wasn't glamorous. Compliance tracking, vendor verification, shipment scheduling. But it taught me how systems worked. More importantly, how they failed when someone got sloppy. Victoria's calendar synced to our shared household account, a feature she'd forgotten about when she started using the new phone the company issued her. I pulled it up. The week showed block time. RP Conference, Phoenix. But the location field was empty. Every legitimate work trip she'd taken included the hotel name, the conference center, the room numbers. This one was blank except for the title. I opened a new document and titled it Week Plan. Then I made breakfast. Victoria left at 4:30 sharp. I heard the car service pull into the driveway, heard her heels clicking down the front walk, heard the trunk close with expensive finality. Through the bedroom window, I watched the black sedan disappear down Maple Street. I gave it 30 minutes. Then I checked the credit card statement. She'd been careful. The recent charges were mundane. Starbucks, the dry cleaner, a grocery run. But 3 weeks ago, there was a payment to a boutique hotel chain I didn't recognize. Not Phoenix. Not anywhere near Arizona. Monterey, California, a coastal town 300 miles north. The charge was listed as a deposit. I cross-referenced the dates. They aligned with a client dinner Victoria had mentioned in passing, except the client dinner had supposedly been in San Jose and she'd come home the same night. The hotel charge was for 2 nights. I sat back in my desk chair. Our home office was quiet except for the hum of my laptop fan. We'd painted these walls together 4 years ago, picked out the desk at IKEA, argued about whether the filing cabinet should be gray or black. She'd chosen gray, said it matched the corporate aesthetic she wanted. I opened a second document and started building a timeline. By Wednesday afternoon, I had her actual location. Not through hacking, not through some sophisticated digital forensics. Through the automated notification from our car insurance company reminding us that Victoria's vehicle had a scheduled service appointment in Monterey for Thursday morning. She'd forgotten to cancel it, or assumed I wouldn't check the email, or simply didn't care. The service center was 2 blocks from the boutique hotel. I pulled up the hotel's website. Oceanfront rooms, wine country packages, couples spa treatments. It was the kind of place you went when you wanted to feel young and reckless, when you wanted to pretend your life wasn't carpools and mortgage payments and shared dental insurance. My phone buzzed. Victoria's text. "Landed safe. Hotel's nice. Miss you." I replied. "Miss you too. Sending pictures?" 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "Service is spotty. Talk tomorrow." I smiled at the screen. Translation. Wherever she was staying didn't have the kind of generic corporate decor she could safely photograph. My work phone rang. Gary Feldman from the warehouse. "Hey, got a minute? We've got a discrepancy on the Pemberton medical shipment." "What kind of discrepancy?" "Delivery schedule shows Thursday, but their receiving dock is closed for renovations until Monday. No one updated the system. Who signed off on the original timeline? Papers shuffled on his end. Looks like it came through Victoria's department. Her assistant, specifically? Victoria's assistant. Kimberly. 24 years old, fresh from business school, eager to please. The kind of person who handled routine approvals without questioning them because questioning slowed things down, and Victoria's department prided itself on velocity. I'll flag it, I said. Reroute to the backup facility. Log the delay and the cause. Make sure the documentation is clean. You got it. Thanks. I hung up and stared at my computer screen. Pemberton Medical was a significant account. The kind where delays triggered penalty clauses. The kind where sloppy scheduling could cascade into much larger problems. Victoria's company had been running lean lately. I knew because she complained about it. Budget cuts, hiring freezes, increased pressure to deliver faster with fewer resources. The kind of environment where small mistakes became expensive very quickly. I opened a third document, started mapping the relationships between vendors, clients, and internal approval chains. Not because I intended to do anything, just because I wanted to understand the landscape. Thursday evening, Victoria called instead of texting. Video call. I answered. She was in a hotel room, but the background was carefully framed. Just the headboard and a generic lamp. Could have been Phoenix. Could have been anywhere. How's the conference? I kept my voice light, casual. Exhausting. We've been in session since 8 this morning. She looked tired. Genuinely tired. That part probably wasn't an act. Lying took energy. Learning anything useful? The usual corporate strategy recycling. New frameworks for old problems. She sipped from a water bottle. How's home? Quiet. I fixed the garage door opener, finally. You've been saying you'd do that for months. Had the time, no distractions. Something in her expression shifted. Just slightly, like she was trying to figure out if that meant something. Well, I appreciate it, she said. I'll be back Sunday evening. We can do dinner somewhere nice. Sounds good. Get some rest. Love you. Love you too. The screen went black. I set the phone down and returned to my laptop. The Pemberton medical situation had grown more complex. The delayed shipment meant their surgical center couldn't restock critical supplies. They'd filed a formal complaint. Davidson Logistics would eat the penalty cost, around $40,000, but the real damage was the relationship. Pemberton had been discussing expanding their contract. That conversation was now frozen. I checked who'd signed off on the original delivery timeline. Not Victoria directly, but her department. Her responsibility. I made a note in my week plan document. Small cracks, check foundation. Friday morning, I drove to the Davidson Logistics warehouse. Not unusual, I visited the facility weekly to verify compliance standards, check inventory protocols, meet with Gary and the operations team. But this time, I brought questions. Gary, you ever notice any pattern to the scheduling issues? Like specific departments or vendors? He leaned against a forklift, hard hat under his arm. Funny you ask. Last quarter, we had 3 major delays traced back to approvals that came through too fast. Like someone was rubber stamping without checking capacity. Victoria's department? Didn't want to throw anyone under the bus, but yeah, since they restructured and she took on regional oversight, things got rushed. Quality dropped. Anyone raise concerns? Phil tried, got told to focus on execution, not questioning leadership decisions. Gary shrugged. You know how it is. Velocity over accuracy until something explodes. I did know. I'd watched it happen across a dozen companies. The march toward quarterly targets that ignored structural damage. The belief that momentum mattered more than foundation. Thanks, Gary. Keep me posted if anything else comes up. I walked back to my car and sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes, watching forklifts move pallets like pieces on a chessboard. Victoria's company wasn't failing because of incompetence. It was failing because of overconfidence. Because someone decided growth mattered more than sustainability. Because shortcuts were faster than proper procedure, and because no one was watching the calendar. I pulled up the vendor contract database, found the file for Hutchinson Industrial Supplies. They were one of the largest partners, providing materials for multiple client accounts. Their contract renewed quarterly, and the next renewal was scheduled for Monday, June 24th. 3 days after Victoria returned from her business trip. The renewal required executive sign-off, Victoria's signature, but she'd be jet-lagged, distracted, probably buried in catch-up emails, the kind of situation where important details got missed. I opened the contract terms and started reading carefully. There was a clause about timely renewal notification. If the vendor didn't receive confirmation 48 hours before the deadline, they had the right to pause shipments pending renegotiation. I checked the outgoing correspondence log. No notification sent yet. Victoria's assistant, Kimberly, was supposed to handle it, but Kimberly was also probably swamped, covering for Victoria's absence, juggling approvals and putting out fires. I closed the laptop and started the car. Sometimes the best way to break something is to simply stop holding it together. Saturday, I received a text from Victoria. Extended 1 day, back Monday instead. Sorry. I replied, no problem. Everything okay? Just additional sessions, networking opportunities, important for Q3 planning. Makes sense. Safe travels. I set the phone down and smiled. She'd just given me an extra day. Sunday morning, I went to the office. The Davidson Logistics building was nearly empty on weekends, just security and the occasional operations manager handling urgent issues. I logged into my workstation and pulled up the vendor management portal. Found the Hutchinson contract, checked the notification status, still pending. I opened my email and drafted a message to Kimberly. Hey, notice the Hutchinson renewal deadline is approaching. Do you need me to follow up, or is Victoria handling it when she returns? Professional. Helpful. The kind of message that created paper trail without appearing suspicious. I scheduled it to send Monday morning at 8. Then I went home and cleaned the house, vacuumed the carpets, wiped down the kitchen counters, changed the sheets on the bed. When Victoria returned, everything would look exactly as she'd left it, except for the things she couldn't see. Monday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. This is Derek Hutchinson. Is this the compliance department at Davidson? Yes, sir. How can I help you? I'm trying to reach someone about our contract renewal. It's supposed to finalize today, and I haven't received confirmation. Victoria's office isn't responding. I kept my voice calm, professional. I believe Victoria is traveling back from a conference today. She should be in the office tomorrow. Would you like me to leave her a message? I'd like more than a message. We've got shipments scheduled for Wednesday, and if this contract isn't renewed, we're legally obligated to halt pending renegotiation. I understand your concern. I'll flag this as urgent and make sure it's prioritized. Appreciated. He hung up. I made no additional calls, sent no additional emails, simply logged the conversation in the system and marked it for Victoria's attention. Sometimes the best revenge is patience. Victoria arrived home Monday evening at 7:30. I heard her car in the driveway, heard the trunk open, heard the suitcase wheels clicking across the pavement. I was in the kitchen, making pasta, simple marinara, the kind she liked. She came through the door looking exhausted, but satisfied. The expression of someone who'd gotten away with something. Hey, honey, I'm home. Welcome back. How was the extended session? Productive. Made some good connections. She set her suitcase by the stairs, kicked off her heels. Something smells good. Figured you'd be hungry. Flight delays? A little. You know how it is? I did know. I knew American didn't have direct flights from Monterey. I knew she'd probably driven back, maybe stopped somewhere to establish an alibi, maybe coordinated timing to match a flight schedule. She was good at covering tracks, just not good enough. Wine? I offered. Please. I poured 2 glasses. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared 1,000 dinners, discussed vacation plans, argued about whether to refinish the hardwood floors. So tell me about Phoenix, I said. She launched into a practiced summary. Conference panels, networking lunches, strategic planning sessions, all generic enough to be true, detailed enough to sound legitimate. I listened and nodded and asked appropriate questions, and thought about Derek Hutchinson's phone call, about the Pemberton medical complaint, about the dozen small fractures in the foundation that no one was watching. You seem distracted, Victoria said, studying me over her wine glass, just thinking about work. We had a situation with a delayed shipment last week. Anything serious? Nothing I couldn't handle. She smiled, relaxed slightly, convinced herself that I was still the same manageable, predictable husband I'd always been. Good, she said. I don't know what I'd do without you keeping things running smoothly. I raised my glass. To keeping things running smoothly. We clinked glasses, and I watched her drink. The pasta was excellent. We finished the bottle. Victoria went upstairs to unpack, and I cleaned the kitchen. My phone buzzed with an email notification. From Kimberly. Victoria. Derek Hutchinson called again. He's threatening to halt shipments. The contract deadline was today. I thought you were handling this? I deleted the notification and went upstairs. Victoria was in the shower. I could hear the water running, could see steam escaping under the bathroom door. I sat on the bed and waited. When she emerged, wrapped in a towel, hair dripping, she looked younger, almost like the woman I'd married 9 years ago, before the promotions and the corporate ambition and the lies. "Missed this," she said, crossing to the closet. "Missed you too." She dressed for bed, and we lay in the darkness, and I listened to her breathing slow and steady as she drifted towards sleep. "Victoria? Tomorrow's going to be a long day, isn't it?" A pause. "Probably. Lots of catch-up. You'll handle it. Always do." I closed my eyes and smiled. She had no idea what tomorrow would bring. None at all. Tuesday morning began with Kimberly's frantic phone call waking Victoria at 6:15. I was already in the kitchen, brewing coffee, when I heard Victoria's voice spike with stress through the bedroom door. "What do you mean, halted? How is this the first I'm hearing about this?" Muffled response from the phone. "I told you to handle the renewals before I left." More muffled justification. "Fine, I'll deal with it. But this is exactly the kind of thing that shouldn't be escalating to my level." She emerged 10 minutes later, already dressed in a charcoal suit, makeup applied with aggressive precision. The kind of armor people wore when they expected combat. "Morning," I said, offering coffee. She took it without slowing. "Crisis at work. The Hutchinson contract wasn't renewed, and they're halting shipments. It's going to cascade into at least 4 client accounts." "That sounds serious." "It's a disaster. I don't understand how this happened." She gulped coffee, burned her tongue, swore quietly. "I have to go. I'll call you later." "Good luck." The door slammed. The engine started. Tires squealed slightly as she backed out too fast. I sipped my coffee and opened my laptop to check the Davidson internal messaging system. The crisis was already spreading. Gary had sent a group notification about the Hutchinson shipment pause. Operations was scrambling to find alternative vendors. Client services was fielding angry calls. Finance was calculating penalty exposure. And everyone was asking the same question. How did this happen? I sent Gary a message. "Need anything from compliance side?" His response came immediately. "Can you pull the approval chain for the Hutchinson renewal? Management wants to know who dropped the ball." On it." I pulled the records. The approval chain showed Victoria as the final sign-off, with Kimberly handling preliminary coordination. But the timeline revealed something interesting. The renewal notification was supposed to go out 2 weeks ago, during a period when Victoria was supposedly focused on Q3 strategic planning, the same period when she'd taken that unexplained overnight trip to San Jose, or Monterey, or wherever she'd actually been. I documented the timeline, highlighted the gap, and sent it to Gary with a note. "Looks like it fell through the cracks during the strategic planning phase. Let me know if you need additional details. Professional, neutral, factual, absolutely ruinous." By noon, the crisis had evolved into a full-scale emergency. I knew because Phil from operations called me directly, which never happened unless something was genuinely catastrophic. "We've got a problem," Phil said without preamble. "Hutchinson was supplying materials for the Grayson Medical Project. That's a hospital construction site. They've got OSHA timelines and state compliance deadlines. If we don't deliver by Friday, they'll terminate the contract and sue for delays." "How much are we talking?" "Conservatively? 200,000 in penalties, plus reputational damage that could cost us the entire medical sector portfolio." I whistled low. "Can you source from another vendor?" "Working on it, but the timeline's brutal. And even if we find someone, the cost will be 30% higher. Victoria's supposed to approve the emergency expenditure, but she's been in meetings all morning." "Want me to try reaching her?" "Could you?" "This is beyond my authority level." I called Victoria's cell. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. I left a message. "Hey, it's me. Phil needs emergency approval for the Grayson Medical Alternative sourcing. Call when you can." She didn't call back. I waited an hour, then sent a text. "Work stuff urgent. Phil needs you." Red receipt showed she'd seen it. No response. I called Phil back. "No luck. She's probably buried. You want me to escalate to her boss?" "God, no. That'll make her look incompetent. Just keep trying, okay?" "Will do." I hung up and returned to my laptop. Victoria's boss was Kenneth Brandt, VP of Operations. I'd met him twice at company events. He was the type who smiled easily and remembered nobody's name, who delegated everything and took credit for anything successful. He was also exactly the kind of person who'd throw Victoria under the bus if it meant protecting his own position. I didn't call Kenneth. But I did send a carefully worded email to the compliance distribution list, which included Kenneth, flagging potential OSHA timeline risk on Grayson Medical Project, awaiting approval chain resolution, documentation attached. The documentation showed every step of the approval process, every delay, every point where Victoria's signature was required but absent. I sent the email at 1:45. By 2:15, my phone rang. Kenneth Brandt. "This is serious," he said, skipping greetings entirely. "Why wasn't I informed earlier?" The situation developed rapidly. I flagged it as soon as the compliance implications became clear. "Where's Victoria?" "In meetings, from what I understand. I've tried reaching her." "Well, find her. This is her account, her responsibility. If Grayson terminates, heads will roll." "Understood." He hung up. I imagined him forwarding my email to his own boss, adding some comment about operational oversight concerns and accountability gaps. Corporate politics were predictable. Everyone protected themselves. Nobody protected each other. I sent Victoria another text. "Kenneth's looking for you. Grayson situation escalating." This time she responded immediately. "In crisis mode. Can't talk. Handle what you can." I stared at the message. Handle what you can. Like I was her assistant. Like I existed to clean up her messes while she juggled whatever she was actually doing. I texted back, "This is above my authority. You need to engage." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Reappeared. Finally, "I know. Give me an hour." An hour. In crisis management, an hour could mean the difference between containment and catastrophe. I opened a new document and titled it, Grayson Timeline, Compliance Record. Then I started documenting everything. Victoria came home at 9:30 that night, looking like she'd aged 5 years in a single day. I was on the couch, reading, or pretending to read, actually tracking the internal company message threads on my laptop. "Rough day?" I asked. She dropped her bag, collapsed into the armchair. "The worst. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong." "The Hutchinson situation?" "That was just the start. It cascaded into Grayson, which pulled in 3 other accounts. Kenneth's furious. The clients are threatening to pull contracts. And somehow I'm the one getting blamed for all of it." "How's that possible? You were at a conference last week." "Exactly. But apparently the renewal was supposed to be handled before I left, and Kimberly insists I never gave her clear instructions, and now there's this whole question about whether I properly delegated responsibilities before traveling. I set my book aside. That seems unfair. It's corporate scapegoating. Kenneth needs someone to blame, and I'm the convenient target." She rubbed her temples. "I might need to lawyer up if this keeps escalating." "Lawyer up? For what?" "They're talking about an internal review, examining my approval processes, my management structure, my decision-making timeline. It's basically a pretext for constructing a termination case." I kept my expression neutral. Concerned, but not alarmed. "Can they do that?" "They can do whatever they want. I'm an at-will employee. If they decide I'm a liability, they'll find a reason to cut me loose." She looked at me, and for the first time in months, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. "I worked 8 years to get to this level. I can't lose it because of one bad week." One bad week. That's what she called it. Like the problems had materialized spontaneously rather than accumulated through months of negligence and shortcuts and prioritizing personal indulgence over professional responsibility. "You'll figure it out," I said. "You always do." She smiled weakly. "Thanks for the vote of confidence. Want some wine?" "God, yes." I poured 2 glasses and brought them to the living room. We sat in silence for a while, the kind of quiet that used to feel comfortable but now felt like a ceasefire. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said eventually. "Sure." "Do you think I've been distracted lately, like not present?" I considered the question. The honest answer would burn everything down. The dishonest answer would be cowardice. I chose a third option. Precision. "I think you've been focused on your career. That's not the same as distracted." "But has it affected us? Our relationship?" "Do you think it has?" She looked away. "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like we're roommates more than partners, like we're going through motions." "Is that how you felt in Phoenix?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Victoria's expression flickered. Surprise, then calculation, then careful neutrality. "What do you mean?" "Just that you seemed energized when you left, like the trip was something you were looking forward to." "It was a work conference." "I know." I sipped my wine. "But sometimes work conferences can be refreshing. Change of scenery, new perspectives." She studied me, trying to determine if I was implying something or simply making conversation. It was fine, she said finally. Standard corporate networking. Nothing special. Good. I'm glad it was productive. The lie settled between us like sediment. We finished our wine, and Victoria went upstairs to shower. I stayed on the couch, listening to the water run, thinking about trajectories and consequences and the difference between causing harm and simply allowing it to happen. My phone buzzed. Email from Gary. Emergency vendor meeting tomorrow morning. Kenneth wants you there to document the approval chain issues. 7 a.m., I replied. I'll be there. Then I opened my week plan document and added a new line. She's starting to suspect something. Good. Fear makes people sloppy. Wednesday morning, the emergency meeting was exactly as grim as expected. Kenneth presided from the head of the conference table, flanked by Phil and 2 people from legal. Gary sat across from me, looking exhausted. Victoria was conspicuously absent. Where's Victoria? Kenneth asked, glancing at his watch. She texted that she's running late, Phil said, dealing with a client call. Kenneth's jaw tightened. Of course she is. Well, we'll start without her. Gary, walk us through the timeline. Gary presented the sequence of failures. The Hutchinson renewal miss, the Grayson medical cascade, the Pemberton complaint from the previous week. Each incident was distinct, but together they formed a pattern. And the approval authority on all of these? One of the legal representatives asked. Victoria's department, Gary confirmed, either her direct sign-off or her delegated authority through Kimberly. Hey, where's the documentation? I slid a folder across the table. Complete approval chains, email threads, and timeline analysis. Everything's indexed. The legal rep opened the folder and started reading. Her expression grew progressively more concerned. Kenneth leaned forward. Bottom line? There's a systemic issue, I said carefully. Not necessarily malice or incompetence, but a structural problem with how approvals were managed during the strategic planning phase. Things fell through gaps. What kind of things? Contract renewals, delivery schedules, client communications, the kind of routine processes that require consistent oversight. And Victoria was supposed to provide that oversight? She's the department head. Ultimately, yes. Kenneth sat back. How much is this going to cost us? Phil consulted his notes. Grayson penalties are capped at $200,000. Pemberton is $40,000. Hutchinson renegotiation will probably add 15% to costs, which over a year is about $80,000. Plus reputational damage that's harder to quantify. So we're looking at over $300,000 in direct losses. Conservatively. The legal rep closed the folder. We need to discuss liability and exposure. If clients sue for negligence, we'll need to demonstrate we took corrective action. Kenneth's meaning was clear without being stated. Someone would need to be sacrificed. The door opened. Victoria entered, slightly breathless, carrying a coffee cup. Apologies. The Grayson client needed immediate attention. Sit, Kenneth said flatly. She sat, noticed the folder in front of legal, noticed everyone's expressions. What's this? Documentation review, Kenneth said. We're trying to understand how a week's absence led to a $250,000 crisis. Victoria's composure cracked slightly. That's not fair. I delegated clear responsibilities before leaving. Did you? The legal rep opened the folder. Because the email record shows multiple approval requests that went unanswered during your conference. I was in sessions. I checked email when I could. The timestamps show significant gaps, including a 48-hour period with 0 responses. Victoria's face flushed. I was networking, building relationships that benefit the company long-term. While short-term operations collapsed, Kenneth's voice was ice. That's not strategic planning. That's negligence. I watched Victoria's world fracture in real time. The realization that she'd been outmaneuvered, that the narrative was already written, that her explanations sounded like excuses. I want to see my personnel file, she said, and I want HR present for this conversation. HR has already been briefed, Kenneth said. We're scheduling a formal review for Friday. Until then, you're on administrative leave. You can't be serious. We're very serious. This company can't afford another week like the last one. He stood. Gary will handle your accounts temporarily. Kimberly will report directly to Phil. You'll receive formal notification by end of business today. Victoria stood as well, visibly shaking. This is retaliation. For what, I don't even know. But this is clearly coordinated. This is accountability, Kenneth corrected. Something that's been lacking. She looked around the table, at Gary, who wouldn't meet her eyes, at Phil, who studied his notes, at Legal, who remained expressionless, at me. Our eyes met. and in that moment I saw recognition flicker across her face. Not certainty, not accusation, just the first whisper of suspicion that maybe, possibly, the timing of all this wasn't coincidental. "I need to make a call," she said. "Take your time," Kenneth replied. "You're not needed in the office today anyway." She left. The door closed with quiet finality. Kenneth turned to me. "Good documentation. Clean, clear, irrefutable." "Just doing my job." "Well, keep doing it. We're going to need comprehensive records for the review process." The meeting adjourned. I gathered my materials and returned to my desk. An hour later, Victoria texted me. "We need to talk. Tonight," I replied. "Of course, I'm here." She didn't respond. I opened my laptop and searched for one name. The boutique hotel in Monterey. They had an online guest feedback system. I scrolled through recent reviews until I found what I was looking for, a comment from 2 weeks ago mentioning the couple in room 217 celebrating an anniversary. Room 217, oceanfront suite, premium rate. I took a screenshot and saved it in a folder titled Background Research. Then I went back to work, documenting everything, building the record that would ensure Victoria's professional downfall was thoroughly, irrefutably complete. She wanted to talk tonight. I was very much looking forward to listening. Victoria was already home when I arrived at 6:30, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open and her phone face down beside a half-empty glass of wine. She'd changed out of her work clothes into yoga pants and an old college sweatshirt, the kind of outfit that signaled retreat from the world. Her hair was pulled into a messy ponytail. No makeup. She looked younger and more vulnerable than I'd seen her in years. "Hey," I said, setting my bag by the door. She glanced up. "We need to talk." I figured. I poured myself a glass of water, leaned against the counter. "What's going on?" "What's going on is that my career is being systematically destroyed, and I can't figure out why." Kenneth seemed pretty clear. The losses are a pretext." She cut me off, voice sharp. "These kinds of operational issues happen all the time. You don't suspend a senior director over a bad week unless you're looking for an excuse." "An excuse for what?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out." She closed her laptop. "Someone wants me gone. Kenneth, probably. He's been threatened by my performance reviews for months. This is his opportunity to eliminate competition for the VP track." I sat down across from her. "That seems paranoid." "Does it? Think about the timing. I take 1 week off, my first real break in 8 months, and suddenly everything falls apart. Contracts that have been routine for years suddenly become crises. That's not coincidence. That's sabotage." She wasn't entirely wrong, but she'd misidentified the saboteur. "Who would do that?" I asked. "Kenneth. Or someone working for him. Maybe Phil. He's always resented reporting to me instead of having his own department." She picked up her wine glass, realized it was empty, refilled it. "I've been going through my email, trying to find evidence." "Evidence of what?" "Communication gaps. Instructions I gave that weren't followed. Approvals I submitted that weren't processed. Anything that shows this wasn't my fault." "And?" She hesitated. "The record is unclear. There are gaps. Times when I should have responded but didn't. But I was in sessions, networking, doing exactly what senior leadership is supposed to do at these conferences." I nodded slowly. "What did Kimberly say?" "Kimberly is protecting herself. She's claiming I never gave her clear delegation instructions before I left, which is ridiculous. She's been my assistant for 2 years. She knows the procedures." "But if there's no email trail?" "There doesn't need to be an email trail for every conversation. We talk in person. We handle things verbally. That's how functional teams work." Victoria's voice rose slightly. "But now everyone's pretending that if it's not documented in writing, it never happened. That's pretty standard in corporate environments." "It's standard when people are building a case against you." She drank more wine. "I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow, employment law specialist. If they're going to terminate me, I want to make sure they follow every procedure perfectly." "You think they'll actually fire you?" "The administrative leave is a bad sign. It means they're creating distance while they finalize the termination justification. I'll probably be gone by next week." She said it matter-of-factly, but I could hear the fear underneath. Victoria had built her identity around her career. Without it, she'd be unmoored. "I'm sorry," I said. "Are you?" She looked at me directly. "Because you don't seem particularly surprised." The room went quiet. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car passed. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked carefully. "It means you've been weirdly calm through all of this. Most people would be more upset seeing their spouse's career implode. I've been supportive. You've been neutral. There's a difference. She leaned forward. And there's something else. When Kenneth mentioned the documentation you provided, the approval chains, the timeline analysis, you had all of that ready, like you'd been building it already. That's my job. Compliance tracking requires comprehensive documentation. But you had it immediately, like you knew exactly what they'd need before they asked. I held her gaze. I'm good at my job. Are you? She tilted her head. Or are you good at something else? The accusation hung between us. Not fully formed yet, just the shape of suspicion beginning to solidify. I could have denied it, could have acted offended, could have turned it into an argument about trust and support and partnership. Instead, I asked, how was Monterey? Victoria went very still. What? Monterey, the boutique hotel, room 217. How was it? The color drained from her face. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. I kept my voice gentle, almost kind. You were there 2 weeks ago, Thursday and Friday night, the same time you told me you had a client dinner in San Jose. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You went through my phone. I didn't need to. You forgot to cancel your car service appointment. The reminder email came to our shared account. You're spying on me. I'm observing. There's a difference. She stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. This is insane. You're building some paranoid narrative because of a hotel charge? Not just the hotel, the flight times that didn't match, the conference that had no published agenda, the extended day that wasn't on any official schedule. I stood as well. The perfume you weren't wearing when you left, the way you angled your video calls to hide the background, the fact that you've been lying to me for weeks. I haven't... Don't. The word came out sharper than I intended. Don't insult both of us by continuing the lie. I know you weren't in Phoenix. I know you were with someone else. I've known since before you left. Victoria's hands trembled. If you knew, why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to see how far you'd take it. That's manipulative. Is it? I smiled without warmth. Or is it just giving you enough rope? She stared at me like I was a stranger. Who are you? I'm the same person I've always been. You just weren't paying attention. So what? This whole week, the work crisis, the administrative leave, all of it, you orchestrated this? I didn't orchestrate anything. I simply stopped compensating for your mistakes. Turns out when you remove the safety net, people fall. You destroyed my career. No, you destroyed your career. I just declined to save it. She grabbed her phone. I'm calling someone. Who? Your lawyer? Go ahead. But think carefully about what you're going to tell them. Because if you accuse me of sabotage, you'll need to explain why I had access to do so, which means explaining why you were negligent enough to create the vulnerabilities in the first place. Her hand hovered over the screen. The calculation was visible on her face, weighing options, running scenarios, realizing every path led to exposure. This is because I had an affair, she said finally. You're punishing me. I'm not punishing you. Punishment implies I care about justice or fairness or teaching you a lesson. I don't. I simply stopped protecting you from the consequences of your own choices. That's the same thing. Not even close. I walked toward the door. You wanted to know who's sabotaging you? Look in the mirror. You prioritized an affair over your responsibilities. You lied to your employer about where you were. You delegated critical tasks while being unreachable. You created this situation. I just let it happen. Where are you going? For a walk. You should call your lawyer. You're going to need one. I left her standing in the kitchen, phone in hand, wine glass abandoned, the reality of her situation finally becoming clear. The night air was cool. I walked 3 blocks to the park and sat on a bench beneath a streetlight. My phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. Who is he? I stared at the message, considering how to respond. Then I typed, Does it matter? Her reply came immediately. Yes. Why? 3 dots appeared and disappeared multiple times. Finally, because I need to know how much you know. I almost laughed. Even now she was calculating, trying to assess the damage, trying to figure out if she could contain the situation or if it had already spread beyond her control. I typed, I know everything I need to know. No response. I pocketed my phone and stared at the empty playground, swings moving slightly in the breeze, a forgotten soccer ball against the fence. Tomorrow, Victoria would meet with her lawyer. She'd try to build a defense, find leverage, negotiate a settlement. She'd deploy all the skills that had made her successful. persuasion, strategic thinking, controlled aggression. But she'd already lost. She just didn't understand why yet. Because this wasn't about an affair. It wasn't even about the lies. It was about underestimation. For 8 years, Victoria had assumed I was manageable, predictable, a supporting character in her story rather than the author of my own. That assumption had been her fatal mistake. I stood and walked home slowly, taking the long route through the neighborhood. Lights glowed in windows, families eating dinner, couples watching television, normal people living normal lives. We'd been normal once, or at least pretended to be. When I returned, Victoria was asleep on the couch, still in her yoga pants, laptop open on the coffee table, wine glass tipped over and empty. I covered her with a blanket, closed her laptop, and went upstairs to bed. Tomorrow would bring new complications. But tonight, watching her sleep with her defenses down and her secrets exposed, I felt something close to peace. She'd asked who I was. She was about to find out. Thursday morning, Gary texted, "Need to talk. Coffee before work?" We met at a diner 2 blocks from Davidson. He was already in a booth, looking troubled. "There's a rumor about Victoria," he said, "that she wasn't actually at a conference, that she was with someone, a vendor or partner." I ordered coffee before answering. Why ask me? Because the rumor's affecting company politics. Kenneth's using it to justify the leave, says it's a conflict of interest if she mixed personal relationships with business. Is he naming anyone? Not yet. But people are digging. He paused. Is it true? If it were true, would it change how you view the failures? It would make them worse. Distracted by personal entanglement is one thing. Compromising company interests is another category entirely. Gary sat back. Christ, does Kenneth know? I know he's building a case. Personal misconduct would strengthen it. Who's the guy? I shook my head. If I were investigating, I'd look at recent vendor engagements and West Coast expansion accounts. Gary pulled out his phone, scrolling. There's a new vendor doing site inspections. He stopped. Brandon Ellis, Hutchinson Industrial's West Coast director. Same Hutchinson that's halting shipments? Same company. Gary's expression darkened. If Victoria was involved with him personally and that influenced the renewal delay, I know she was in Monterey. Ellis lives in Monterey. The renewal fell apart while she was unavailable. Draw your own conclusions. Gary swore. If Kenneth connects this, there could be ethics investigations, liability questions, maybe legal action. That's your call. You're the operations director. And you're her husband. Which is why my opinion shouldn't matter. I stood. You do what's best for the company. I left and drove to work. The office buzzed with activity. People clustered in hallways, conversations stopping when I passed. My email showed legal requesting vendor communication records. HR scheduling a confidential interview. Victoria texted, "People are calling me. What did you do?" I replied, "Nothing. People talk." Someone's spreading information. Maybe the truth is surfacing naturally. An hour later, Kenneth called me to his office. Was your wife having an affair with Brandon Ellis? I held his gaze. I suspect she wasn't in Phoenix. Where was she? Monterey. Hotel charge on our credit card. Kenneth's jaw tightened. Ellis is based in Monterey. I know. Did you know before she left? Before. It became a business matter when contracts collapsed. He pulled out a file. Ellis has been flagged for aggressive tactics. If Victoria was involved, he could have engineered the delay for negotiating leverage. What are you going to do? Recommend immediate termination. If there's even a possibility of ethical compromise, we can't risk it. When will you tell her? Tomorrow, after we finalize documentation. He extended his hand. You've handled this professionally. It's noticed. I returned to my desk and pulled up Ellis's profile. 34, Stanford MBA, married, 2 kids. I downloaded his photo and sent an anonymous email to his wife. Hotel receipt, Victoria's calendar, and 1 sentence. Thought you should know. Temporary email service. Untraceable. I went home early. Victoria was pacing, phone to her ear. My lawyer says the company has grounds for termination. The relationship allegations would make it uglier. Are they allegations if they're true? Her face hardened. You're enjoying this. You made choices. I'm watching consequences unfold. While doing nothing to help? Why would I help someone who betrayed me? I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting milk. What you did was deliberate. How do you know his name? I pay attention. What did you do? His wife might be interested in how he spends business trips. Victoria's phone rang. It's Brandon. She answered, her voice shaky. Hello? Your wife knows what? I watched her face cycle through shock, horror, fury. You ruined his life, she said to me. He ruined his own life. I accelerated the timeline. His wife is filing for divorce. Sounds stressful. She stared at me. I don't know you anymore. You mentioned that already. I went upstairs, leaving her with her panic and the realization she'd underestimated me. Tomorrow she'd be fired. Ellis's marriage was imploding tonight, and I was just getting started. Friday morning, I dressed in my navy three-piece suit. Victoria hadn't slept. I'd heard her pacing all night. She was at the kitchen table, still in yesterday's clothes, surrounded by documents. HR meeting is at 9, she said. My lawyer will be on speakerphone. Good luck. That's all? What would you like me to say? That you're sorry, that this got out of hand. But I'm not sorry. It's working exactly as designed. She looked at me, eyes red-rimmed. Who are you? I'm the person you lied to for weeks. I'm the person you assumed was too passive. I'm the consequence you didn't see coming. Brandon's wife served him with divorce papers. His company is investigating. His life is disintegrating. And? Don't you feel anything? Why would I feel guilty about telling the truth? You weaponized it for maximum damage. I ensured accountability. She grabbed her bag and left. I finished coffee and drove to work. The Davidson building felt different, quieter. People avoided eye contact. Gary caught me at my desk. Kenneth made his decision. Victoria's terminated effective today. Severance conditional on NDA and non-compete. Will she take it? Her lawyer's advising her to. Fighting would make everything public. What about Ellis? Hutchinson put him on leave. If they find ethics violations, they'll terminate him and probably pull the contract entirely. There's something else, Gary said. Kenneth's considering you for a promotion. Senior compliance position, auditing departmental processes, 20% bump, oversight authority. I'd need to think about it. Take it, you've earned it. At 11:15, Victoria texted, It's done. Sign the papers, leaving now. I replied, Okay. That's all? 8 years together. And you spent the last several weeks lying to me. No response. At noon, her car passed through the parking lot without stopping. I felt nothing. My phone rang. Unknown number. This is Mitchell Blake, representing Brandon Ellis. You sent materials to my client's wife. Sounds like someone provided factual information. My client is prepared to pursue harassment charges. He should consider whether a legal battle would draw more attention to his actions or less. That's a threat. That's practical advice. Your client made choices. I shared observations. I hung up. That evening, Victoria was packing. Staying with my sister. Probably for the best. She held a blazer. Do you want me to fight for us? No. So 8 years means nothing. It meant something. Past tense. Then you made it mean nothing. She sat on the bed. Everything I worked for is gone, and you just watched. I did more than watch. What? You think this was coincidence? The contract timing? The documentation? Ellis's wife finding out? Her face went pale. You planned this. I stopped protecting you from consequences. Maybe I accelerated a few timelines. That's sabotage. That's accountability. You created the vulnerabilities. Why not just confront me? Because I wanted you to understand what it feels like to have your world dismantled by someone you underestimated. This is revenge. This is justice. I'll be gone by tomorrow. I left her to pack and made dinner. Ate alone. Kenneth's email. Offering you the senior compliance position. The salary was generous. The position gave me oversight across all departments. I replied, I accept. Victoria would recover. Ellis would face consequences. And I would continue forward, carrying the weight of what I'd done. Because some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness. They deserve precision. This is Mitchell Blake, a man's voice said. I'm representing Brandon Ellis in his divorce proceedings. I understand you sent certain materials to my client's wife. I don't know what you're talking about. The anonymous email, the hotel receipt, the calendar screenshots. Sounds like someone provided her with factual information. Information obtained through questionable means. Was it factual? Silence. Then, my client is prepared to pursue harassment charges if this continues. Your client is welcome to pursue whatever he likes, but he should consider whether a legal battle would draw more attention to his actions or less. That sounds like a threat. That sounds like practical advice. Your client made choices. Those choices had consequences. I'm simply a person who noticed patterns and shared observations. With deliberate intent to cause harm. With deliberate intent to provide transparency. What Mrs. Ellis chooses to do with that transparency is entirely her decision. You destroyed a family. No, your client destroyed a family when he decided to have an affair. I just made sure the truth was visible. Blake's voice hardened. Stay away from my client and his family. Any further contact will be considered stalking. I have no interest in further contact. My business with Mr. Ellis concluded when his wife became informed. I hung up. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ellis's lawyer threatening me with harassment charges while defending a man who'd actively participated in deception and betrayal. The system protecting the guilty while ignoring the complicit. But I didn't need the system. I had something better. Information, timing, and patience. That evening, I came home to find Victoria's things already partially packed. She was in the bedroom, methodically sorting clothes into suitcases. Moving out? I asked from the doorway. Staying with my sister for a while, until I figure out what comes next. Probably for the best. She paused, holding one of her blazers. Do you want me to fight for this? For us? No. Just like that? Just like that. So 8 years means nothing to you. It meant something, past tense. Then you made it mean nothing by prioritizing someone else. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. And people face consequences for those mistakes. That's how life works. She folded the blazer with shaking hands. I loved you. Past tense? I don't know anymore. I don't know anything anymore. She sat on the edge of the bed. Everything I worked for is gone. My career, my reputation, my marriage. And you just watched it happen. I did more than watch. Her head snapped up. What? You really think all of this was coincidence? The Hutchinson contract falling apart at exactly the worst time? The documentation being ready when Kenneth needed it? Ellis's wife finding out the same week you got terminated? Victoria's face went pale. You planned this. I didn't plan anything. I simply stopped protecting you from the natural consequences of your choices, and maybe I accelerated a few timelines, made sure information reached the right people at the right moments. That's sabotage. That's accountability. You created the vulnerabilities. I just highlighted them. Why? Her voice broke. If you knew about the affair, why didn't you just confront me? Why this elaborate destruction? Because confronting you would have given you the opportunity to lie, manipulate, make promises you wouldn't keep. Because I wanted you to understand what it feels like to have your world systematically dismantled by someone you underestimated. This is revenge. This is justice. There's a difference. She stared at me like I was a monster. Maybe I was. Maybe I'd become exactly the kind of person who could watch someone they'd once loved lose everything and feel nothing but cold satisfaction. I'll be gone by tomorrow, she said quietly. Take your time. I'm not in a hurry. I left her to her packing and went downstairs, made myself dinner, ate alone at the table where we'd shared thousands of meals. Watched the sun set through the kitchen window. My phone buzzed. Email from Kenneth. Offering you the senior compliance position. Salary details attached. Let me know by Monday if you're interested. I opened the attachment. The salary was more than generous. The benefits were comprehensive. The position would give me oversight authority across all departments. Everything I'd lost in my marriage, I'd gained in my career. Some people would call that a hollow victory. I called it a fair trade. I replied to Kenneth, I accept. Thank you for the opportunity. Then I poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat on the back porch, listening to the neighborhood sounds. Dogs barking, children playing, the distant hum of traffic. Normal life continuing for everyone else while mine transformed into something unrecognizable. Victoria would recover eventually. She was resilient. She'd find another job, rebuild her reputation, maybe even find someone new to share her life with. Brandon Ellis would face his own consequences. Divorce, professional termination, the slow grind of rebuilding from wreckage. And I would continue forward, carrying the weight of what I'd done and the knowledge that I'd do it all again without hesitation. Because some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness. They deserve precision. Saturday morning, Victoria's car was already gone. She'd left during the night. The house felt cavernous, every room echoing with the ghost of shared routines. I made coffee and stared at the empty counter space. 8 years reduced to vacant rooms and lingering perfume. Gary texted, "Lunch? Discuss the new position." I replied, "Noon, same diner." I spent the morning cleaning, vacuumed, changed sheets, boxed Victoria's remaining items, books, bathroom products, a wedding photo. We'd been younger in that photo, happier, or pretending to be. At 11:30, my doorbell rang. Brandon Ellis stood there. Unshaven, bloodshot eyes, wrinkled clothes, he looked destroyed. "We need to talk," he said. "No, we don't." "Please, 5 minutes." I stepped onto the porch. "You have 3. "Why did you do this? Destroy my life, Victoria's career, send that email?" "You did that yourself. I just ensured the truth was visible." "It wasn't calculated. It just happened." "Things don't just happen. People make choices." "But what you did..." "I didn't destroy anything. You participated in betraying my marriage. You compromised your own. You violated professional ethics. And you expected everyone to look away?" "I expected basic decency." "You want to talk about decency? Lying to your wife? Risking your company? That's decency?" "My wife won't let me see my kids. My company's terminating me. My reputation is destroyed." "You made dozens of choices that reinforce the deception. Don't call it one mistake." He stepped closer, desperate. "What do you want? Money?" "I don't want your money." "Then what?" "Nothing. You participated in destroying my marriage. Now you're experiencing consequences. That's not negotiable." "You're a monster." "Maybe, or maybe I believe in accountability." He tensed, larger than me, probably stronger, but he stopped himself, stepped back. "I loved her," he said quietly. "If it was real, you would have left your wife first. Real love doesn't hide." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You wanted excitement without responsibility, Victoria's attention while maintaining your comfortable life. When truth came out, you wanted to blame everyone but yourself." His anger collapsed into defeat. "She won't talk to me. Victoria blocked my number." "Good for her. It's over. Both marriages ending. Both careers destroyed." "How can you be so calm?" "Because I made my peace before this started. I knew what I was doing." "I hope this revenge makes you feel better." "It's not about feeling better. It's about feeling appropriate." He drove away in his dented Lexus. I felt no sympathy. He wasn't a victim. He was a participant who lost. The diner was crowded. Gary waited in a back booth. "Kenneth wants you transitioning into the new role by next week," he said. "We need to figure out handoffs, training, reporting structures." We spent an hour discussing logistics, office location, departments I'd audit, software upgrades, additional staff. Surreal. 2 weeks ago, I'd been mid-level. Now I was a critical organizational asset, because I documented my wife's collapse with meticulous precision. "How are you doing?" Gary asked. "With everything?" "I'm fine." "Your wife just lost her job and left you." "Most people didn't spend weeks preparing for this outcome." He studied me. "You really planned all this." "I recognized patterns, made strategic decisions, let consequences unfold." "That's not natural. That's orchestrated." Gary leaned back. "You're scary. Professionally, you're what the company needs. Personally, I wouldn't want to be on your bad side." "People on my bad side put themselves there. I just ensure they understand consequences." Chilling. Accurate. Gary mentioned Victoria tried negotiating a better severance. Kenneth shut her down, reminded her about the NDA. "She threatened to go public," Gary said. "That would be a mistake." "She's desperate." "She has no leverage. Now she's just shouting into the void." I drove home and organized my office. Around 5, Victoria called. "I need to talk. In person." "I don't think that's a good idea." "I'm outside. I need closure." Her car was in the driveway. 5 minutes. She looked exhausted on the porch. Dark circles, messy hair. "I want to understand when you decided to destroy everything." "I didn't destroy everything. I stopped maintaining the illusion." "When did you know about Brandon?" "Before you left for Monterey." "So you knew the entire time. Watched me lie. Said nothing." "What would have been the point? You'd already chosen." "The point would have been giving me a chance to fix things." "But you didn't want to choose me. You wanted your career and your marriage and your secret relationship all compartmentalized." "I was confused." "You were selfish." She flinched. "That doesn't justify what you did." "Brandon's wife is taking everything because you sent that email. Because he had an affair. The email ensured she knew. You didn't have to tell her. And she didn't deserve to know she was being lied to? Victoria's expression hardened. This isn't about truth. This is punishment. I wanted you to face consequences. No difference. Maybe she was right. Maybe beneath the justifications was just anger and hurt. But I wasn't admitting that. If that's what you need to believe, fine. We're done here. I'm filing for divorce. I assumed. I'm not asking for anything. I just want this over. Agreed. She turned, then paused. Do you hate me? I considered honestly. No. Hate requires caring enough to sustain emotion. Nothing you anymore. Her eyes welled. That's worse. Probably. She drove away. The last time, no more conversations, just lawyers and paperwork. I poured a drink and sat in the dark living room. Tomorrow, I'd start my new position, new authority, new responsibilities. Victoria would look for a new job, a new life. Ellis would navigate his divorce, and I would continue forward, carrying the knowledge that I'd engineered all of it. Some people would call me a villain. I called myself someone who refused to be a victim. The difference was probably just perspective. I want to understand. I've been trying to figure out when this started, when you decided to destroy everything. I didn't destroy everything. I simply stopped maintaining the illusion. When did you know about Brandon? Before you left for Monterey. So you knew the entire time. You watched me pack, watched me lie, and said nothing. What would have been the point? You'd already made your choice. The point would have been giving me a chance to fix things, to apologize, to choose you instead. But you didn't want to choose me. You wanted the excitement of the affair without the consequences. You wanted your career and your marriage and your secret relationship all compartmentalized so you could pretend there was no conflict. I was confused. You were selfish, she flinched. Maybe, but that doesn't justify what you did. Keep telling yourself that. Brandon's wife is taking everything from him. His kids, his house, his career, all because you sent that email. All because he had an affair. The email just ensured she knew about it. You didn't have to tell her? And she didn't deserve to know she was being lied to? Victoria's expression hardened. You're hiding behind righteousness. But this isn't about truth or justice. This is about punishment. You wanted me to suffer. I wanted you to face consequences. There's a difference. No, there isn't. You're just better at lying to yourself than I am. Maybe she was right. Maybe beneath all the careful justifications and logical explanations, there was simply anger and hurt, and the desire to make her feel a fraction of what I'd felt discovering her betrayal. But I wasn't going to admit that. If that's what you need to believe, fine, I said. But we're done here. You got your closure. Now leave. I'm filing for divorce. I assumed as much. I'm not asking for anything. No alimony, no property split. I just want this to be over. Agreed. She turned to leave, then paused. Do you hate me? The question hung in the air. I considered it honestly. No, I said finally. Hate requires caring enough to sustain the emotion. Nothing you anymore? Her eyes welled with tears. That's worse. Probably. She got in her car and drove away. This time I knew it was the last time. No more conversations, no more confrontations, just lawyers and paperwork and the slow administrative dissolution of a marriage that had ended weeks ago in every way except legal formality. I went inside, poured a drink, and sat in the gathering darkness of my living room. Tomorrow I'd start my new position. New authority, new responsibilities, new identity within the company. Victoria would start looking for a new job, a new place to live, a new version of herself that could exist in the wreckage of what she'd lost. Brandon Ellis would navigate his divorce and try to rebuild a career that was permanently tainted, and I would continue forward, carrying the knowledge that I'd engineered all of it with precision and patience. Some people would call me a villain. I called myself someone who simply refused to be a victim. The difference was probably just perspective. Monday morning, I arrived at Davidson Logistics at 7:30 to find my new office already configured. Corner location, windows overlooking the parking lot, twice the size of my previous cubicle. My name was on the door. Senior Compliance Director. Kenneth was waiting inside, holding 2 coffee cups. Thought you might need this, he said, handing me one. Big day. Appreciate it. I wanted to brief you personally before the official announcement goes out. He settled into one of the visitor chairs. Your role is essentially internal oversight. You'll audit departmental processes, identify vulnerabilities, recommend corrections. You report directly to me, which means you have authority to examine anyone's work, including other directors. That'll make me popular. You're not here to be popular. You're here to prevent another Victoria situation. He sipped his coffee. The board was furious about the losses. They want assurance that we have controls in place. You're that assurance. Understood? There's something else. Kenneth set down his cup. The Hutchinson situation is officially resolved. They're pulling their contract and moving to a competitor. Ellis has been terminated. The damage is contained, but it cost us about $500,000 all told. That's significant. It is, but it could have been worse. If the pattern had continued, if more contracts had collapsed, we could have been looking at systemic failure. He met my eyes. You stopped that from happening, not by preventing the crisis, but by documenting it so thoroughly that we could respond decisively. Just doing my job. No, you did more than that. You saw a problem, gathered evidence, and presented it in a way that forced action. That's rare. Most people either ignore problems or escalate them emotionally. You were clinical, professional. I nodded, accepting the assessment. Kenneth saw what he wanted to see. A dedicated employee who'd maintained objectivity during a personal crisis. He didn't see the calculation, the strategy, the deliberate timing. He didn't need to. We're announcing the promotion at this morning's staff meeting, Kenneth continued. I'll introduce you, explain the new compliance structure, outline reporting procedures. You should prepare to say a few words about your approach. Nothing dramatic, just competence and diligence. Perfect. The staff meeting was at 9. I spent the intervening time reviewing the department files that would now fall under my oversight. Operations, logistics, vendor management, client services, all the areas where Victoria's shortcuts had created vulnerability. I made notes, identified patterns, started building a framework for systematic review. At 8:55, I walked to the conference room. It was packed. Word had spread about the announcement. People wanted to see who was moving into the position created by Victoria's downfall. I took a seat near the back and waited. Kenneth called the meeting to order at 9 sharp. Thank you all for coming. I'll keep this brief. As you know, we've undergone significant organizational changes in the past week. Those changes revealed structural issues in our compliance and oversight processes. To address those issues, we're creating a new senior position focused specifically on internal auditing and risk management. He gestured toward me. I'm pleased to announce that position will be filled by someone many of you already know. Please join me in welcoming our new Senior Compliance Director. Polite applause. A few genuine smiles from people like Gary, who I'd worked with for years. Mostly neutral, professional acknowledgement. I stood and walked to the front. Thank you, Kenneth, and thank you all. I'm honored by this opportunity and committed to ensuring our operational integrity. My approach will be straightforward. Systematic review, transparent documentation, and proactive problem solving. I'm not here to find fault or assign blame. I'm here to identify vulnerabilities before they become catastrophic. My door is always open. If you see issues, bring them to me. If you have questions, ask them. We're all working toward the same goal, a stable, sustainable operation that serves our clients effectively. More applause. I returned to my seat. The meeting continued with updates from other departments. New vendor contracts, client expansion opportunities, the machinery of business grinding forward regardless of individual dramas. When it ended, several people approached to offer congratulations. Gary clapped me on the shoulder. Phil shook my hand. Even Kimberly, Victoria's former assistant, offered a nervous smile. Congratulations, she said. I'm glad someone competent got the position. Thank you. How are you adjusting to the new department? It's fine. Different pace, different priorities, but fine. She looked relieved, probably grateful to be away from the wreckage of Victoria's professional collapse. I spent the rest of the day setting up operational protocols, meeting with IT to configure my system access, coordinating with department heads to schedule initial audits, building the infrastructure that would prevent future crises. At 5:30, my phone rang. Unknown number, I answered cautiously. This is Jennifer Ellis, Brandon's wife. Her voice was sharp, controlled. I wanted to thank you. For what? For sending that email, for giving me the information I needed to protect myself and my children. I said nothing. I know it was you. The timing, the details. It had to be someone with inside knowledge. And I know why you did it. You wanted him to suffer the same way you were suffering. Mrs. Ellis, I don't care about your motivations. I just wanted you to know that you did the right thing. I deserved to know what my husband was doing. My children deserved a parent who wouldn't lie to them. Her voice wavered slightly. So thank you. Even if your reasons were selfish, the outcome was just. I'm sorry you're going through this. I'm not. I'm angry and hurt and furious at the wasted years. But I'm not sorry. I'd rather know the truth than live in comfortable ignorance." She hung up. I sat at my desk, staring at the phone, processing the conversation. Jennifer Ellis had called to thank me for destroying her marriage, because truth, even painful truth, was preferable to deception. Maybe she was right. Maybe that was the only justification I needed. Or maybe I was just better at rationalizing than I thought. At 6, I packed up and headed home. The house was dark and quiet. I made dinner, pasta again, simple marinara, and ate alone at the kitchen table. My phone buzzed. Text from Victoria's sister, Angela. "V is staying with me for now. She's a mess. I don't know what happened between you two, but she doesn't deserve this." I stared at the message, debating whether to respond. Finally, "She made choices. Choices have consequences. I'm sorry she's hurting, but I'm not responsible for fixing it." Angela's reply came immediately. "You're cold. I always thought she was lucky to have you. Now I see she was lucky to escape." I didn't respond. Whatever Angela thought of me didn't matter. Victoria's pain didn't change the fundamental reality of what had happened. She'd betrayed our marriage. She'd lied repeatedly. She'd prioritized her affair over her responsibilities. And I'd simply ensured the consequences caught up to her. Tuesday through Thursday passed in a blur of meetings, audits, and organizational restructuring. I reviewed contracts, examined approval processes, interviewed department heads. The work was consuming, which was exactly what I needed. Friday afternoon, I received an email from Victoria's lawyer. "Divorce papers attached. Client requests expedited processing. No contested items." I downloaded the documents, reviewed them carefully. Everything was straightforward. Clean separation, no alimony, equitable division of minimal shared assets. She wanted out quickly and completely. I signed them electronically and forwarded them to my own lawyer for filing. 8 years of marriage reduced to digital signatures and legal boilerplate. At 6, I left the office and drove to the park where I'd sat the night Victoria confronted me. The playground was empty, swings moving gently in the evening breeze. I sat on the same bench and pulled out my phone. Opened the folder of evidence I'd collected. Hotel receipts, calendar screenshots, email threads, vendor documentation. Everything I'd used to construct Victoria's downfall. Then I deleted it all. The evidence had served its purpose. Keeping it would just be dwelling on what was already finished. I stood and walked home through the quiet neighborhood. Lights glowing in windows, families sharing dinner, normal people living normal lives. I'd never be normal again. The version of me who could forgive betrayal, who could prioritize reconciliation over accountability, who could look away from uncomfortable truths, that person was gone. In his place was someone colder, more precise, more willing to accept the cost of justice. I didn't know if that transformation was worth celebrating or mourning, but it was irreversible, and that would have to be enough. Saturday morning, I woke to find an envelope on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was a handwritten letter on expensive stationery. "I know what you did. I know how you did it. I know the timing wasn't coincidental. The documentation wasn't neutral. The consequences weren't accidental. You're smart, calculated, patient. Everything I thought I was, but clearly wasn't. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I understand now. You didn't just end our marriage. You showed me who I'd become. Someone willing to sacrifice integrity for temporary satisfaction. I'll carry that lesson forward. Probably won't make the same mistakes again. Not because I'm better, but because I'm scared of what happens when I underestimate people. You win, completely and totally. But I hope, eventually, you realize that winning doesn't mean you didn't lose something too. V." I read the letter twice, then burned it in the kitchen sink. Victoria wanted closure, understanding, some acknowledgement that we'd both suffered. But I had nothing left to give her. She'd taken my trust, my marriage, my ability to believe in partnership, and I'd taken everything else. We were even, except we weren't. Because even now, she thought this was about winning or losing, about who hurt more or who deserved sympathy. It wasn't. It was about consequences, about ensuring that actions aligned with accountability, about refusing to be the person who absorbed betrayal quietly and moved forward pretending everything was fine. I watched the letter burn to ash, washed the sink clean, and started my day. There was work to do. Audits to complete, systems to rebuild, a career to continue. Victoria would find her own path forward. Brandon Ellis would face his own consequences. Jennifer Ellis would rebuild her life free from deception, and I would continue being exactly what I'd become, someone who understood that truth, however cold, was preferable to comfortable lies. Some people would call that justice. Others would call it revenge. I called it balance. And in the end, that was the only judgment that mattered.